Oh, great. Thank you to whoever is recording. Appreciate you. All right, well, as folks continue to introduce themselves in the chat, it is so great to see everyone here. Just a first reminder that if you would like to set your chat to everyone, so everyone who is here in this conference with us, all 578 folks and counting, that would be great. Otherwise, it'll just be us panelists who see it, and we want to hear from all of you. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you so much for joining us for the 3rd annual Conference on Academic Library Management. We are so grateful to have you be a part of our conference this year. It is wild that we are in our 3rd year of this conference. So when we started CALM in 2020, it really was just a kind of a wild idea, and it's been so wonderful to see so many people get involved and so many folks join in. So my name is Danny Brecker-Cook. I am one of the co-founders of CALM and on the steering committee this year, and I'm really happy to welcome you today. And you'll be hearing from most of our committee members today. So we do have captions turned on. I see a little bit of that in the chat, and I'm also going to drop a link to the external caption site. So if that works better for you, that should be an option for you, and do let us know if that's not working for you. Yes, so welcome again. So we do want to let you know that this opening session will be recorded. We will be putting it on our YouTube channel. So if you're not able to stay for the full time today, or you want to rewatch any of this later, you're welcome to do so. And we'll be putting that up as soon as possible. If you are a Twitter user, and I know not everyone is, and especially in the past year, but you can follow us at CALM Conference or using the hashtag #LibCalm. So as I mentioned, this is our 3rd year of the conference, and every year we strive to do things a little bit better. This has been a learning process for us as we have gone on the past 3 years. So I think none of us had ever arranged a conference before, let alone an online conference. So we are really grateful to everyone who's given us feedback over the year. And we'd love to share with you some of the things that will be different this year, as well as some of the things that you can expect to remain the same, as well as, again, talk a little bit about the logistics of these sessions. So every year we do ask for feedback at the end of the conference, and we'll be grateful if you'll provide that to us again this year. And so one of the biggest changes we have this year is we were able to open many more seats. So we have 1,500 people registered for our conference this year. That's 500 more than previous years. And we're really happy to be able to bring this content to more folks across the library community. We do have captioning now in every breakout session, including the lightning talks, although not in the discussion groups. So as I mentioned, you can turn those on in your webinar controls, and I'll drop this again, the stream text link is here in the chat. Thank you so much to our captioning team. Y'all are incredible. We have 2 interactive workshop sessions this year, facilitated by Nisha Modi, that did have a pre-registration associated with it. There are still spots left for Thursday's BIPOC only session. So if you're interested in that, do send us an email at calmconf@gmail.com, and we'll be glad to help get you registered. One of the other big changes for this year is our change in approach to land acknowledgements, which we're actually going to spend a fair amount of time at our opening today discussing. So I won't share too much about that, but we received a lot of feedback, and we did a lot of thinking and learning in relationship to land acknowledgements this year, and we're happy to be on that journey with y'all. We shared guidelines for slide accessibility with our presenters this year. So please give us feedback on if that seems to have helped with some of the contrast issues. And we'll be glad to address that. If you have questions during this session, I'm noticing there are some in the chat. Actually, if you could put them in the Q&A box, that would be really helpful so that we don't miss you. So thanks so much for all of your questions. We'll have more discussion groups this year. So previous years, we've all had one session of discussion. This year, we will have multiple on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So hoping to create more community for folks to connect across the CALM conference and have that opportunity to meet colleagues who I might not otherwise see. In Discord this year, we hosted a book club that will continue after the conference as well, but if you would like to participate this week, we definitely welcome you to do so. And we'll be thinking about how we might extend book club type activities in the future. Every year, we try a different month to hold the conference. Clearly, this year is June. Previous years, we've done April and May. I think we will probably not do June again because June turns out to be a wild month. But we'll keep trying, and we appreciate your feedback on the timing of the conference as well. And we also have primarily library-focused keynotes this year. So we've had some really excellent keynotes in the past, and we heard from the community that we wanted to hear more from folks who specifically work in academic libraries or in the library space. So we're really happy to be able to share that with you this year. Some of the things that we kept the same. Registration has remained free. So institutions sponsor CALM. We'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. And we're really grateful to everyone who's helped to put this conference on. It's really important to us as part of our sort of ethos of CALM to make this conference accessible to as many folks as possible. We have kept our focus on practical person-centered management practices, as you will see from our conference program. We have kept the week-long format, so half a day for a full week, so that y'all can do other things and absorb some of the information without being on the computer the full day. And then, of course, we couldn't do any of this without our dedicated conference volunteers. So this conference takes a full year to put on. So pretty much as soon as the conference is over, we take a couple weeks break and then we start again. And so this year's conference took 103 volunteers to make possible, including 63 reviewers. So it really does take so much of our community to create this space. And when you see the call for volunteers next year, we definitely welcome you to get involved. So thank you to everyone who has helped us. And of course, we'll talk more about that shortly. So one of the values that we had when we started this conference in 2020 was, what if we were radically transparent in how we put this conference together? So in our opening this year, we thought we would talk a little bit about that process. Again, we talked about the number of volunteers that it takes to put on this conference. We also thought we'd share some about our presenters, the folks who are here today with us, as well as our land acknowledgement process. So this year we received 168 proposals. That's about average for what we've received over the past 3 years. We've accepted 26 breakout sessions and 12 lightning talks. So every year we've tried to increase the number of presentations that we can host. And we were able to do that a little bit this year. When we look at the proposals, our program planning committee does conduct an equity check to ensure that as much as possible, we have a diversity of institutions, institution types, geography, topics, and self-reported identities. So for example, I am coming to you from San Diego, California, and we want to make sure that this is not a conference of Californians, as much as Californians are awesome. So hopefully you will see that play out in the conference program over the next week. I will say that this year our presentations are only from the US and Canada. In previous years, we've had some international presentations, and most presenters are employed at four-year institutions. I'm going to talk in just a minute about the attendees, and you'll see that we have a much more diverse makeup of attendees than presenters. So just a reminder to all of you who are here from community colleges, internationally, et cetera, that this is a space for you as well. And we hope you'll consider applying for CALM next year. So our attendees, this year we had, as of Friday, but I think it actually has gone up this morning, 1,482 attendees. Thanks so much for being here. We're blown away. So to give you a little sense of where folks are coming from, most folks are coming from public colleges and universities, so 62.3%. About a quarter are coming from private colleges and universities, and about 5% from community colleges. We also have participants here from public libraries and special libraries, and we see you and we're so grateful that you're here with us, and would love to hear from you throughout the conference about your experience. This year, we also asked folks who are registering about their experience as managers. So we have a lot of new managers in our community, and we're really grateful for that. So about 33% are either aspiring managers or they have a small number of years of management experience. 23% have 3 to 5 years. Another 23% have 6 to 10 years. About 16% have 11 to 20 years. 5.3% 21 to 30 years. And a little under 1% have been managers for 30 plus years. Incredible. So we're so glad to have kind of the spectrum of folks with management experience here to contribute to conference conversations. We also asked folks about their positions in the library. So we have about 10% of people here who are university librarians and deans, about 9% who are AULs or the equivalent, 25% who are department heads, 10% who are aspiring managers, about 9% who are supervisors of librarian or faculty, 6% who are student supervisors, 8% who are staff supervisors, and then a whole mix of other folks who maybe occupy various managerial identities. So again, we're really grateful to have folks here who have both institutional power and folks who are aspiring to become managers or just want to learn more about what maybe they could ask their managers to do, different ways of doing things and act in their sphere of influence. So we're really grateful to have you all here with us. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Sean to talk about our volunteers.
Thanks so much, Danny. Hello, everybody. My name is Sean, or Shanta Smith Cruz, but call me Sean. And I really want to give an infinite thank you to the volunteers who put this together, the 103 names or people that Danny mentioned. I'm going to organize it by how we've done this work, and because I think the model is something that we should truly consider replicating here. So if you go to the next slide, I do want to acknowledge that we begin with a steering committee. And the steering committee leads the charge and meets bi-weekly to weekly about this time to act as kind of a liaison to the various committees across the full programming. One of those committees is the program planning committee, and that committee is the one that coordinates with our reviewers, our 63 reviewers, to evaluate incoming proposals and determine the themes for the conference and support our session moderation. And you'll see the names here. I'm not going to read them. I was very tempted to, but I was advised not to. So we also have the tech committee. The tech committee is the one that the committee that supplies tech support for the conference, coordinates our Zoom licenses, works with our captioners, and provides training to the rest of the teams. Our logistics committee, contrastingly, not yet. The logistics committee handles the code of conduct, manages our registration, coordinates our new SCED platform, and provides conference guidance on our land acknowledgements. Thanks, Danny, for leading slides. So you'll hear a bit from our logistics committee in a moment. And then if you go to that next slide, we have our communications committee, and they maintain our social media presence. So they're the ones tweeting right now, live tweeting. They're on our Discord and LinkedIn, and they also are updating the website. Our resources committee manages the reading group that has been organized this year and reviews how CALM gathers, stores, and shares resources discussed or referenced during CALM. I'm happy to sit on steering and support these 30 plus volunteers, as well as coordinate logistics for our reviewers that are in the next slide. Mostly it's post reviewing that I talk to our reviewers. If you go to the next slide, Danny, we want to also thank the folks who have reviewed the 168 proposals that came in from institutions across the country and potentially also Canada. I didn't check, but I will also say that a lot of these folks also came back in to support us during the week. So thank you to everyone who's acting as a moderator, as a tech person, who's a code of conduct on call, who's on our Slack, who's making this work. It's just such a great team, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. And I also wanted to acknowledge that we have 742 people in the Zoom room right now. So we're all here together doing this great work. So I'll pass it over to, I think it's Moya, but I'm not sure actually.
It is. Wonderful. Hello, everyone. I'm here to thank sort of the other part of the process that keeps things going for the conference. So my name is Moya Kirker. I'm one of the steering committee members, and I'm here to thank the sponsors who helped us raise $19,000 this year to make this conference happen. All of our sponsors are institutions, so not vendors. And this comes out to, with the number of attendees, about $12 per person to attend the conference. And we like this model. It works really well. It allows some larger institutions who might otherwise pay hundreds of dollars to register one individual to have 3 guaranteed registrations. But it also makes it possible for those who may not have any conference funding to attend. So we are forever grateful for our sponsors. And we'll run through who some of those are. So we're not going to read them all, but we have a slew of keynote sponsors who make our tremendous keynotes possible. So we've got a couple of slides of these, and we'll just sort of give you some time to look at each of them. And thank you all for those who enabled that to happen. Some of it's volunteers, some of it's just attendees like you. So if you want to see your name here or your institution's name in the future, please feel free to reach out to us through the Calm Gmail account. And so then this year we added workshops. And hopefully you've seen that and you heard the call for the BIPOC only session, still having seats left. And so these institutions helped make that happen. And we have our Zoom rooms, which are sponsored by these 2 institutions here as well, including one who came in at the clutch, which we're really grateful for, and our accessibility sponsors, which help make the captioning happen for you. And then schedule sponsors to make Sketch happen. That was an early lesson we learned during the conference. Sketch has made, I think, everyone's lives a little easier when planning this out. And then our infrastructure sponsor. So they help sign the checks and make sure that we have all the admin support we need to make Calm happen. So thank you to all of our sponsors. And again, feel free to send us an email if you or your institution would like to sponsor future versions of Calm. And I will hand it over to, I believe, Veronica.
So I just wanted to go over a few reminders for the conference this week. And we'll start off with what to expect. So we're asking attendees to provide feedback on the sessions you attend each day through Sketch. There's a link for the session evaluation available. All sessions except the discussions will be held in Zoom webinar, and each webinar room is capped at 500. So you may not always be in your first choice for every time slot, but having served on program planning, I think that the content is excellent. So you can't go wrong no matter what session you choose. Feedback forms for each session will be provided at the close of your Zoom and also via a button in Sketch. And if you are having any tech issues that can't be resolved in your session by the technology moderator, you can email calmconf@gmail.com. You can follow the conference on Twitter at calmconference, and our conference hashtag is libcalm. Okay, and for accessibility, you can turn on live captioning for any session except discussions. It's usually at the bottom of the Zoom menu, has a CC and it says show captions. You can also take a look at separate streaming caption links. There was one that was just, posted for the opening session. And then recorded sessions will be uploaded and made available via YouTube as quickly as we can get them up there. And our conference is, again, collecting resources that are recommended by presenters and attendees for further investigation and consideration of topics. So if you have a reading, podcast, video, or any other kind of resource that can help people dig into topics from sessions a bit more, you can share it with the CALM Zotero group, and the group is called CALM 2023 Resources. You can also post those in the chat. Those will be monitored, and the link to Zotero will be provided at the start of each session. After the conference, you'll also be able to find these resources posted to OSF. And with that, I'll pass things off to Kat.
Good afternoon or morning, everybody. I'm Kat Bell, and I am serving as one of the liaisons to the Logistics Committee, and we support the Code of Conduct. Next slide. So you can read all about our Code of Conduct on our website. We are proud to acknowledge that we've had no reports of conduct violations in the first 2 years of CALM. However, we do acknowledge that this does not necessarily mean that attendees have not experienced harm in our virtual spaces. We want to remind attendees that your mere presence in a conversation can impact feelings of safety for others. We encourage attendees to be open to asking and receiving courageous questions. Only through a commitment to our Code of Conduct and the values of radical transparency and person-centered management practices can we hold ourselves in community with one another to ensure safety, accountability, and growth. Next slide, please. If you do notice any conduct violations throughout the conference, there are many ways that you can let us know. You are welcome to email us. There is a link to our violation form on here. Also, you can reach out to one of the panelists or co-host of any of the Zoom sessions that you'll be in throughout the week. We will have people specifically in these sessions to support Code of Conduct issues and to keep an eye on things. Next slide. And next, we're going to kind of transition from everything that you need to know leading up to the conference, as well as a thank you to everybody who has been here and just really supporting us in this work. And because of this, we've been able to do something really new with our land acknowledgement this year. Next slide. We're only 3 years old, but we do need to go back in time a little bit. In the inaugural year of CALM, the Logistics Committee established the original land acknowledgement for the conference. This committee explored language and practices around land acknowledgements from Indigenous and library-related sources. A statement was shared on our website, and the practice began for conference organizers, moderators, and presenters to verbally begin sessions with a land acknowledgement. In year 2, and this is when I joined the Logistics Committee, we discussed adding a labor acknowledgement and decided that we did not have the capacity to fully review the statement. Instead, we launched a new practice to ask presenters to share Indigenous nations that they were centering and actions that they were taking. The final survey, the results of which were shared during the 2022 conference closing session, captured over 40 Indigenous nations and enslaved people and over a dozen actions. Still, this did not feel like enough. In December 2022, the CALM 2023 Logistics Committee began reviewing the statement. We wanted to challenge, change, and reject the performativity of land acknowledgements. With full support of the steering committee and in the spirit of radical transparency, we embarked on a journey that Heather will start to share with you all. So I'll pass it off to Heather in the next slide.
Thanks, Kat. My name is Heather James, and I've been lucky enough to be an attendee of CALM for all of its 3 years, and this year I'm participating with Steering Committee and Logistics Committee. And picking up from what Kat was telling us about the evolution of the land acknowledgement statement and the practices in the conference, during this year's planning, the Logistics Committee looked at the land acknowledgement statement early in December in one of the early meetings and decided to re-evaluate how we might relate to the land acknowledgement statement. The idea came very quickly and was radically unanimous across the Logistics Committee to be inspired about really being authentic and questioning our own individual experience and engagement with solidarity and allyship for Indigenous peoples in the United States, as well as, to look at how the conference might shift its practice around it. Very quickly then in January, the Logistics Committee reached out to the Steering Committee to essentially ask for, condoning this activity. And Steering Committee was immediately supportive and excited about this idea of blowing up the conversation around land acknowledgements, rejecting the performativity of them, engaging at the individual as well as the group level to be reflective about practice on the ground, as well as listening to and continuing to grow and learn ourselves from the activism and scholarship that is happening among scholars of Native American studies and activists for Indigenous groups. The conversation was large. There were a lot of sharing of resources amongst the Logistics Committee members. There was individual reflective writing that then was coalesced into draft language. This was shared with Steering Committee, and Steering Committee really immediately jumped onto the conversation of how could the conference, as a conference that's not its own organization or association, look at collective activity around this. Then heading into March, we really wanted to engage all of the volunteers and the many people who come together to make this conference possible. And so we held 2 listening sessions with volunteers, as well as opening a Jamboard and creating a comments open Google Doc of the original draft language so that the community that creates Calm could respond to this idea, as well as some of the language and action being proposed. Next slide, please. And as we came closer and closer to the conference, Steering Committee was able to reach out to connect with David Garelick in the Indian Land Tenure Foundation and talk about the possibility of collective action in fundraising for that organization and all of the important work that they do. Additionally, the language was revised with the feedback from the volunteers from those many input opportunities. And so that revised language went up on the Calm website. And the idea is to really continue that commitment to radical transparency such that this is not meant to be a statement. Beyond a Land Acknowledgement is a title for a process that is being undertaken by those who are part of the Calm community. And as we move forward, we had additionally 2 more community chats about the action and the process in May, as well as discussing with presenters what questions they might have and how it would work for them in their own presentations, shifting from year 2 to year 3 this past month in May, getting ready for the conference. And all of our language really centers around the fact that this will be an ongoing, live and dynamic process with room for continued conversation and input from those who are actively participating in Calm, as well as those who are attending Calm and connected to it in multiple channels. And I will now pass to David Lemons.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Lemons. I work at George Mason University. I'm also the chair of the Logistics Committee, and I'm here today to share a couple of reflections, both from the committee itself on how writing this statement went, and also from our broader community. So I've got the full reflections here on the slides. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I want to draw out a couple of themes that you'll see in bold from the slides. So for many of us, we said we had little experience with the concept of land acknowledgements, and this was a great opportunity for us to interrogate what land acknowledgement means and to kind of learn more about it. We also talked a lot about the kind of uncomfortability, the discomfort of doing this process, and we talked about the discomfort and tossing out what has become standard and safe. And this is the kind of necessary discomfort that leads to learning. It was a big theme from reflections from committee members. I really appreciate everything from this top right reflection. And in particular, I want to say that throughout the process, and we're trying to model that here today, we're trying to be honest that we are not in a space where this thing is finished. We're not in a place where it's polished, unquestioned. We still have lots of questions. I'm sure you do too. We hope that process will continue as we go. And I should mention, there's a link in the chat. You'll see Kat Bell shared it, which is a link to the statement, just in case this is your first time hearing about it. Lastly, one other big reflection was we wanted to re-examine the easy narratives. We wanted to re-examine these typical methodologies of other parts of the professional work. And we're able to bring this sort of CALM logistics committee work outside from CALM, again, continuing that conversation. So these are some of the reflections from the committee members. I want to say a special thank you to all the logistics committee for working on this statement together. We can go to the next slide. I can share some reflections from what we've learned so far. So we did a long series of community chats, a couple kind of pre-statement and a couple, I don't want to say post-statement, but I want to say when the statement was in the form you see today. Some big themes from those community chats include this sort of discomfort that I think is echoed by committee members. I think this quote really illustrates it. I thought land acknowledgement was enough. I thought we were doing enough already. And it's discomfort in knowing that there's more to do. Again, many of our committee members also talked about excitement that this is the next step, that we're doing something exciting and new here at CALM, or at least trying to. A couple of other big findings were that action items that are contained within the statement were helpful for people. There are ways within that statement to go beyond the performative and to start taking action to support Indigenous communities. One reflection you've seen in the fourth bullet point here that I appreciated too is it connects to our work as managers, that it encourages this intentional reflection, this thoughtful conversation, this sort of like engaging when things are not perfect is management work too, right? So there's a connection even to the overall theme of the conference. Many attendees also talked about it being an opportunity to interrogate our own practice. And then a couple of questions that were raised that we hope that we'll be able to find the answers together with all of you. What can CALM do to continue this action and also to continue revising the statement? How can we continue to add, I put meat in quotes, how can we continue to add meat to the action portions of this statement? What are ways, and the partnership that you're going to hear about in just a minute is a first step towards this, and how can we continue taking steps toward that? And if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to show people how they can get involved. So there are two ways we've established to engage further with the development of this statement. One is anonymous. So there's a Padlet. It's bit.ly/CALM-BLA, which is an opportunity for you to add your thoughts, upvote and downvote each other's thoughts. And again, this is anonymous, so feel free to share whatever you feel. And then additionally, you should have an email invite to the Discord channel. You can use the social justice channel to engage in a not anonymous way with the work of our Beyond Land Acknowledgement statement. And I believe with that, my time is over, and I'm going to kick it back over to Kat.
Thanks so much, David and Heather. And so next slide, please. As we started sort of wrestling with this process, we were hearing from a lot of our community members that everybody did want to engage in some sort of action together. And I definitely struggled with how fundraising in and of itself can still feel very performative. I think giving money, if you're able to, is honestly a pretty easy way to make an impact. But we did go ahead and decide that this is the action that we were feeling like we could do this year. And one question that came through the chat, thank you. CALM is a conference that exists in a virtual space, and it exists across multiple communities. And so trying to do an action together while being really disconnected from the land that we're actually on is something that we're still very much exploring. But we did run across this great fund from the Indian Land Tenure Foundation called the Beyond Land Acknowledgement Fund. And so we decided that we wanted to ask our CALM community to help support this Beyond Land Acknowledgement Fund this year as a way for us to start moving into action to move beyond performativity. And as you can see, those links will be dropped in the chat for how you can donate to ILTF, as well as a separate form if you'd like to share how much you are donating so we can track Calm's impact. And some of you may be wondering why we're having you contribute directly to ILTF rather than collect a lump sum donation through Calm or take registration fees with the percentage going to ILTF. All of our funds are currently managed by UC San Diego, and so it's a little bit complicated to take individual contributions, especially at scale, and kind of funnel them through an institution to do whatever we want to do with them. I'm sure many of you out there in our community understand how difficult purchasing and acquisitions and fiscal processes are in our bureaucracies, in our institutions. And so we also understand that some institutions may also have limitations on what they can pay for in conference fees, and we want to ensure that Calm remains as accessible to as many people as possible. So donating directly to ILTF allows individuals to determine their own interest and ability to contribute, does not introduce any new restrictions on who can attend Calm, and make sure all money intended for ILTF goes directly to their work. And so we're very lucky today. Danny, if you want to go ahead and start the slide switching, we'll move into our keynote speaker. So I'd like to invite David Garelick, who is our keynote speaker. David, if you want to go ahead and bring yourself on camera and start getting your slides up, I will move into your bio right now. So David has been working as a lawyer in Indian country since 1998 and became corporate relations officer with the Indian Land Tenure Foundation in 2013. Before joining ILTF, Garelick served as the regional supervisor for the Upper Great Plains during the claims processing phase of the historic class action lawsuit Keeps Equal versus Vilsack, in which over $42 million was paid out to Native American ranchers and farmers in the region for their claims of discrimination. Prior to Keeps Equal, Garelick was an associate attorney at Larry Leventhal and Associates, a firm known for its Indian law practice and civil rights litigation. He has represented tribal governments, business entities, and tribal members in diverse matters on 16 different reservations. Garelick's corporate experience includes 10 years of managing national sales efforts as director of the Home Healthcare Products Division of Garelick Manufacturing. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature from Bennington College and a JD from the William Mitchell College of Law. Welcome, David, and thank you so much for being here today. We're excited to learn more about ILTF with you, so I'll turn it over to you now.
Pat, thanks so much for your introduction, and hopefully I'm coming across and the slide's now up with our slide, the Indian Land Tenure slide is up.
Yes, everything's great, David.
Okay, great. It's greetings, everyone. It's an honor to present to you on behalf of the Indian Land Tenure Foundation. I'm ever grateful we all are here at the foundation for the invitation. I appreciate your commitment to not only your commitment to the process with land acknowledgement statements, but to struggle with them and engage with them. I thought I'd move through, today, work with you all, having a little bit of problem. The cursor's jumping around here. Here we go. There we go. Sorry, I've not done this with the split screens before. What I'd like to do to proceed is first give you a much abbreviated background, if that's okay with you all, of some of our work in Indian country, why we do what we do, some of the issues we face, and hopefully give you an understanding of why here at the Indian Land Tenure Foundation we have the capacity to offer a fund like the Beyond Land Acknowledgement Fund. The foundation was created in 2002 by a community.
David, just to interrupt really quick, I don't think you're advancing your slides.
I've not advanced it yet.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure.
Yeah. We were created in 2002 by a community of Indian people that were working on Indian land issues, and not surprisingly, they found that many of the injustices they are living and breathing daily were due directly to the management and control of their reservation lands. We feel that land recovery is essential for the health and welfare of Indian country. Now, two of the main issues that we faced that broke up the tribal land base were the checkerboarding and fractionation. And we'd like you to consider these two terms. I won't go into tremendous depth with them because it's a slippery slope. It is very detailed. I would refer you on our website to our publications, our resources. We've got publications called Message Runners, and the first two issues go very in depth over the General Allotment Act and its progeny and the havoc that they've wreaked in Indian country. Now, the Dawes Act of 1887, this was the other name for the sponsor, Henry Dawes, who basically stood up at one point and said that Indians couldn't be good Americans. They weren't selfish enough. They held land in common. But what the act did, and it was in 1887, it broke up Indian lands, as you can see, that were held in common and divided them up into individual parcels. I'm sure that many of you have long heard that treaties in this country were broken. Well, it's not enough that the treaties were broken. Then came this act and subsequent legislation, which, as you're going to see shortly, broke up tribal land bases even more. And ultimately, the Dawes Act broke up diminished the reservation land base by 2/3, 90 million acres after the treaties, after the tribes had ceded in those treaties millions and millions of acres throughout the United States. It took another 90 million acres from within the reservation boundaries. So, and as this happened, the cohesiveness of the greater Native American community began to disintegrate even further. If anyone has any misgivings or thinks, well, they could, some people thought, the government thought that they would make good bachelor farmers out of most of the American Indian people and suddenly give them these allotments that they could farm. And mind you, of course, many of the reservations were put in lands that no one else had wanted. But defending the act in 1901, Teddy Roosevelt said it is a mighty pulverizing engine to break up the tribal landmass. And here you'll see directly the checkerboard effect and how it affects a tribal land base. This is a map of the Rosebud Reservation, which is in South Dakota. And you'll see that most of the land, the red lands and those lands that are in yellow and kind of orange to red, those are tribal or individual, what we call trust lands. I won't go into that in great detail, but the rest, all the white, that land is held in fee. So that's similar to the way you and I have our properties that we are on. So most of that land that is represented in white within the tribal boundaries is held by non-Indian people. And you can well imagine what kind of jurisdictional havoc this creates. Zoning becomes problematic. Certainly land management becomes problematic. If you think of maps generally of the United States, many people, you look at maps and the tribes that are represented on them are represented by solid blocks of color. And but few people are aware of how little of the reservation land represented is actually available to the tribe for generating income and local economic growth because of this checkerboarding. For example, few people would know a statistic that people find absolutely unbelievable. There's a reservation here in Minnesota, and their land base, not counting the water, but the land base of the Leech Lake Reservation in Minnesota, they only own and control 4% of that land base due to allotment. Another devastating concept, and most of that land at Leech Lake went into the hands of big timber companies or just white settlers. Now, fractionation itself, here you get a chart and you see this chart. This chart presumes It's got 3 generations for each heir. And you'll see that by the 6th generation, roughly the representation goes from let's see, we've got 3 generations out, you've got 9 interests, and they call it a 3rd generation cliff. So after that, you're going to see the interests as people are passing away, and well, I should backtrack for a moment. What fractionation does is it passes the land, it fractionates not the land itself, but the title. So as people die, it keeps getting subdivided further and further and further amongst the heirs. So as you'll see here, by the 6th generation, each person only has 1/243rd of an interest in that land. But some say it's like taking pieces of Indian whole cloth of the reservation, cutting it up, and just scattering those pieces to the wind. By practically speaking, if you've got many parcels have over, within Indian country, have over 100 owners, some over 1,000. If you can imagine by law, if you need more than 50% consent to do a business transaction, even if it's a lease, it's impossible to track down everyone who's an owner of that parcel. It's not only a nightmare for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Department of Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs to track it all. It's a nightmare for the people on the ground who want to conduct business. So it's far easier for them to, rather than engage or try to engage all their co-owners, which is practically impossible, they just go to the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and they lease it out to non-Indian owners. So all the economic value goes right off of the reservation. As an example of this, on the Crow Reservation in Montana, out of the Crow Reservation is 2.3 million acres total. And out of the 1.1 million acres of the land that was checkerboarded, and of that, rather, half of that land is leased to non-Indians, half of it. And again, all economic value flows right off the reservation. So our mission, as you can see, is land within the original boundaries of every reservation. And that's a focus of within the original boundaries of the reservation and other areas of high significance where tribes retain Aboriginal interest in lands are in Indian ownership and management. And we always see this mission as a 150-year project. The foundation is going to be going long beyond our lifetimes and hopefully recovering more and more Indian land. We serve our mission through 4 strategies of education, economic opportunities, cultural awareness, and legal reform. And we work with our strategies through a variety of innovative programs and initiatives. As I told some of the steering committee before getting started today, I've never been able to, we do so many different programs and initiatives across the country. It's impossible to give an elevator speech, and I'm giving you a very basic skeleton today of some of the things that we do, but we are the only organization devoted to Indian land recovery on a national scale. One of the things we've done is we've sent out to prevent fractionation. We've tried to facilitate estate planning across Indian country, but by either contracting with or giving small grants to various legal organizations, usually public interest legal organizations across the United States, to go out into Indian country and help the members write wills and reduce fractionation of the land titles in their area. We also deliver landowner trainings. We go out into the Indian communities, we send out our program officers, and they work with tribes to work with them and work with their land management people and discuss how they might maintain a private economy on land when they own a majority of the land. And we also do direct outreach and training to provide workshops for tribal land staff and individual Indian landowners on various topics of relevance to their land ownership. And we do these activities, we undertake them primarily so they have complete information for their future decisions involving their land. Like your conference, we're extremely proud to co-host the Tribal Land Staff National Conference each year. This has grown beyond our wildest dreams. It started in 2011 and has become the premier education and networking event for tribal land professionals in Indian country. And what it helps us to do is build and consult with an energized network of tribal land professionals. In approximately 2010, some of the local land professionals working for some of the tribes near us here, and I should have mentioned earlier, we're in Little Canada, which we're just 4 miles north of downtown St. Paul here in Minnesota. But they said to us, you know, some of us have tremendous experience. Briefly, tribal land offices are not dissimilar to your county registrar of deeds. They are the offices within a tribe, and the complexion of these land offices, the number of personnel, the issues they confront, they're different all across Indian country. Some land offices may have 1 member, some may have many. Some may also, enfolded within their responsibilities, have people who handle natural resource issues on tribal grounds. Sometimes the historic preservation officers are also officed within the tribal land offices. They have a lot of responsibility, but some of these folks who are senior land professionals working within a tribe said, you know, we never get a chance to mentor the younger people, much like you folks are doing. We never get a chance to talk amongst ourselves. So the conference offers 3 days each year of presentations. The creme de la creme of people familiar with land issues across Indian country come and give 3 days of sessions. And we get an average of about, just back in this past March, we had 350 people. About 200 of them were new that registered. And this was held at Pechanga, which is a tribal casino resort in California. So nearly 200 of the participants and 20 tribes were there for the first time. Some of the things they might learn, people might come and become more proficient and knowledgeable about marketplace costs of their land. For example, a pueblo that say once leased land for $114,000 might, when they renegotiate that lease due to the information that they found, lease it when they're working with the utility now for $4.7 million instead of that $114,000 as they become more aware of that marketplace value. And you can find the conference on the website of the National Tribal Land Association. I'm sorry I didn't have that on the slide. It's ntla.info. And you can find a great deal of information about the conference. We also have provided in 2004, we published an online curriculum. This curriculum comports with state standards, educational standards. It's available online. We've got, I've got the URL up on the website, Lessons of Our Land, and it's designed to incorporate the history is adaptable to include the history and culture of a region's in different Indian nations. And the beauty of it, and not only teaches Indian people, but also teaches non-Indian people basic relationship between land and people in general. And I encourage you to take a look at it. It's used in approximately 13 states and well over, I believe it's well over 1,000 different schools, and tribal schools have adopted or brought it in and tailored it to their needs. We also set up, when Indian land does become available for sale in the United States, it's hard to come by capital. Funding Indian land recovery is not America's favorite pastime. People aren't aware that we're primarily focused on land within reservation boundaries. I think some people might think, or come into their neighborhoods and try to undermine their property ownership or something. That is not the case. But we decided to, back in 2005, we set up a CDFI So a certified development financial institution called the Indian Land Capital Company. It is a for-profit. It lends money to tribes on a full faith and credit basis, much like counties and municipalities get their funding. And we want through this lending to demonstrate that Native nations are creditworthy. They're trustworthy sovereign nations. And we never ask them to put up land as collateral when doing these loans. Since its inception, ILCC has made a total of $49 million in loans to Native nations. Awfully proud of that. The foundation itself has put roughly, combined with this, a total of over approximately $90 million into Indian country. More recently, back in July, the Boys Fort Band of Chippewa up in northern Minnesota, working with the Land Conservation Fund and a loan of $10 million from the Indian Land Capital Company, reclaimed 28,000, a little over 28,000 acres. This is one of the largest, if not the largest, land recovery transaction in Indian country. So we're over the moon with that. Our president said it was the greatest day of his life, and it was like the Holy Grail came together. We found the Holy Grail to get this done. We also have helped, we've been involved with the recovery of sacred sites throughout the country. One such site is Peshwa. It's a sacred site within the Black Hills. This site is it's known as the heart of everything. In fact, the Lakota, the Nakota, and Dakota people consider the Black Hills to be the heart of everything. And in the middle, in the very heart of everything, is Peshwa. It's a sacred site, and roughly 2,300 acres have now been preserved in perpetuity for ceremonial purposes and for cultural access. We're extraordinarily proud of this. We did this in conjunction with the Seven Council Fires. I'll probably butcher the name of Ocheti Sequan, I've heard, is the Seven Council Fires. And that's one of these sacred land purchases that we've been involved with. We also, because you're all educators, we handle 27 donor, on behalf of Indian country, we handle 27 donor advised and designated funds. One such fund is the Spirit of Sovereignty. This is a donor advised fund advised by the National Indian Gaming Association. I'm very proud to work with it as the main liaison to the businesses that do gaming in Indian country. But we give out scholarships to tribal college students. There are 37 tribal colleges throughout the United States. And it's very gratifying to get the thank you letters and the biographies of these students. Many of them, the average constituent or student in a tribal college is not dissimilar. It's basically the same background. Many are single parents, and they're going to school in their early 20s or maybe later, and they're doing so in an environment that might also be offering where the other students look like them. The other students are, there's programming, there's vocational programming. Some are fulfilling their prerequisites for four-year universities before they move on. And it's been very gratifying to be involved with that. And you'll see the URL spiritofsov.org. And we're at Beyond Land Acknowledgements. And as you see here, I don't know if you can see well enough, but it's this is Año Nuevo State Park. And here is a plaque outside. So here's a demonstration of a plaque out of doors that's making visible, probably for many people in the area when they come to the park for the first time, that this land belonged to the Karaste. And I have to admit, this is the first time I heard seeing this slide of the Karaste nation or tribe in California. So a lot of what the land acknowledgements do, they provide visibility and they overcome discrimination by erasure. I think, especially speaking to your cohort, one of the things, an analogy, and I hope you'll entertain it, occurred to me. It's not like putting a book up on a shelf. So you're putting the book, the title is up on the shelf. But in order for that book to come to life, someone's got to take it off the shelf and struggle with its contents, maybe talk to their friends and engage with it, much like you're doing in your process. And especially in this crazy day and age where we have people now talking about banning books, visibility is ever so important. Basically, the acknowledged, you're well aware that of land acknowledgement funds, you covered it tremendously well. I can't thank your steering committee. They've been just a joy to work with. And for all of you, your logistics committee, for your work, for the strong statement that's on your website. But basically the history back in November, our president, Chris Steinbrück, was out speaking at a church. And many of the churches, at least in our area, they go beyond their original land statements by just offering within their congregational educational programs that deal with various issues in Indian country. So Chris was over at a small, relatively small church over in Minneapolis. They don't have a ton of money, but they are extremely politically active, and some of the activists in Minnesota have come from this church. And after Chris was done speaking, and by the way, he asks much like I would ask of you today. We don't ask so much for your money as we ask for your understanding. We're asking for people to understand how Indian land tenure, state of Indian land tenure, how it came to be what it is today. I think since inception, we estimate that about 80% of our efforts have been directed towards education of the public, both Indian and the greater non-Indian public. So at the end of his talk, the pastor walked over and said, maybe here's a little something for you guys that you might use for some reparations. And it was a check for $250,000. And to say Chris was gobsmacked is pretty, that's a major understatement. And we decided with that fund, that funding to establish the Beyond Land Acknowledgement Fund. It was acknowledged in the press locally and elsewhere. And that's where I think your folks might have first or come to know about the Land Acknowledgement Fund, not of the foundation itself, which you've indicated today that you learned of previously. But it allows us to pool the money to make land purchases. And we are as grateful, as I've said, for walking your talk and engaging with this process as much as your funding. I think we're up to, you've got the exact numbers, because when I run the listing, we get funding from all sorts of sources. But when I look at the individual contributions just since March, I think we're up at about 140 individuals, and the great majority of those individual contributions are from your librarians. We're very thankful for those contributions, and hopefully we try to thank each and every one of you individually as well. But as Chris has said, there are countless historic and religious sites across Indian country that are meaningful to tribal communities. There are historic fishing and hunting grounds that could also be returned to tribes. And if these lands are purchased, it's not going to add up to hundreds of thousands of acres, but they are going to add immeasurable value to Indian country because of their deep, profound importance to Indian people. I mentioned earlier our message runners, and here's how you can get to them in our on our website. These are amazing publications. When I was still practicing Indian law, I used to get these message runners would cross my desk. And I had earlier on in my career talked to the local superintendent of the Bureau of Indian Affairs here in Minnesota. He was explaining to me the disastrous effects of the Dawes Act on a reservation that I was spending most of my time on up in Wisconsin, in which there were well over 1,000, one of the most fractionated reservations in Indian country. And I started getting these publications from the Indian Land Tenure Foundation about fractionation, and I'd never seen those types of professional tabloids coming out, published anywhere. And I kept asking myself, who are those guys? Little Canada, where is that? I wasn't even aware, I'm embarrassed to say, so close to my home. And I started finding out myself about the Indian Land Tenure Foundation. So where once I felt like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid asking, well, who are those guys when they were being chased? I'm now proud to be one of those guys and talking to you here today. We also, in partnership with Thomson Reuters, there was an online continuing legal education program that featured a series. And again, many of the presenters who had written on this book on native land law. This book presents it's an aspirational look at how native law should look in an equitable and just society. These books are available from the foundation for purchase. They're updated through about 2016, and most of the issues, they're pretty much up there. They are up to date, even in that latest edition that we have available. Many of the principles are, they comport with the principles laid out by UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. So that's, if you ask how we might engage further in the process, of course, talk to your friends. You can pass out educational materials. You can look at them yourself. You can become, we would just ask people to become familiar with the tribes that are in their homelands and their histories. So many things that you're doing. Just allowing me to speak today is tremendous for the process. In closing, here's our website is at iltf.org. Many thanks for listening to me, for your attention. Hopefully I haven't spoken too fast to get through in a decent amount of time for you all. Thank you kindly for your support. And thank you on behalf of all these little children in Indian country and all the people that we serve. Please do stay in touch. Here's my personal information for anyone who wants to get a hold of me. And at this point, I'm going to stop sharing, and we welcome your feedback. Yeah, let's see, sharing, there we go. Okay, thanks so much.
David, thank you so much. I hope you're seeing all of these emojis kind of scrolling across your Zoom screen as everybody shares their thanks for your presentation and all of the wonderful information you shared about the work that ILTF does. I'm going to ask my colleagues Heather and David to kind of help out with the Q&A. I know you mentioned that you can't speak to nearly everything, but I think there are a few questions that maybe we could try to put your way.
Yeah, I'll try my best. I don't consider myself, as I said to the steering committee, an expert on Indian land issues. When I practiced as an Indian law practitioner, we didn't do a lot of land transactions. What I've learned enough to make me dangerous, I've learned since my time here at the foundation. But if you direct questions, I'd be happy to get them, of course, to people within our organization who can answer them later on too, if I can't provide an answer.
Great. Thank you so much, David. We do have a couple of questions that are open right now. The first question, the person asks, are they right in thinking that most of this work is centered on federally recognized tribes, or does ILTF also provide support for non-recognized tribes? And are there additional resources you would especially value or recommend to learn more about non-recognized tribes?
It is mostly for that recognized tribes that we're working with. I'm not sure of the record with the Indian Land Capital Company. Many tribes without if they have a tiny land base, they're looking for economic development, they might come to the Indian Land Capital Company looking for money to get started on a small land base. As I said, most of the work is with federally recognized tribes. We also do work, for example, we've got a Native Youth GIS program, and it'll be conducted in the urban area. Minneapolis, we have one of the biggest urban communities. And so these are people that are coming from federally recognized tribes and living in the city, as well as people who may not even be tribal members, but maybe are Indian people. And that'll be for Indian youth to start using geographic information systems technology and to give them a step up for a change and learn about that technology so they might even work on reservations later on.
Great, thank you.
I lost.
I was about to ask if other people lost Heather.
Sorry.
Yes, I did.
Sorry, I muted myself. Related to that, one person was specifically asking about in their personal state, the work being focused with federally recognized tribes. There are no federally recognized tribes in the state of Pennsylvania where this person lives. And, what does the work of ILTF and ILCC and some of the other projects look like in those states where there are not federally recognized tribes?
In those states, if groupings of people would come to us, for example, and ask for, I don't have the figure at my fingertips here, but we've done we're actually a community, we're a hybrid foundation. So we are a community and an operating foundation. So we solicit funds and then deploy them through nationwide. So we do granting. And if people have land issues, we're also a clearinghouse for land information in Indian country. So if people want to contact us relative to what they think is a land issue in their area or for their people, we'll be glad to entertain it. No matter where they're located. We've done some work up in Alaska. We don't work in Canada, but so Alaska and the lower 48.
Great, thank you. That is all for open questions at the moment. If others have questions, please do put them into the Q&A and we'll make sure that David gets a chance to answer them.
Or again, just, please do get in contact with me and I'll be happy to, consult with my colleagues and get you a better answer than I might be able to give in the moment.
So while we're waiting on questions, I might share some numbers with folks if that's okay. So according to our form, we are over $4,600 donated to ILTF so far. That's up by, I think, over $1,000 just since we started talking. So great work, community. Make sure that you continue to donate.
Yeah, thanks so much. It just lights up our staff. We had our board meeting here just about a couple of weeks ago. So we've got an 11-member board that's composed of people from all over Indian country that have expertise in Indian land issues, deep experience. They were just elated when we told them about this, told them about your website and just the funding that was coming in. Our staff just, they're just so thrilled to process as the donations come in each day. All of us get very excited. It's been a wonderful thing. We've heard from churches that want to do more. We've heard from universities that want to do more. And it's very gratifying that the universities do. There are many universities that are land grant institutions, and because of their formation as land grant institutions, and as research librarians, you probably well known that they're sitting on, some of them have made hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, from land holdings that came as a result of being land grant institutions. They have land that's not only the footprint that they're sitting on, but elsewhere in the country. So the fact that we would urge a university to do more than just put a land acknowledgement statement on its website, I think it's a very fair thing to ask them to struggle with that concept.
So David, we did get another question from an anonymous attendee, which is how many organizations or conferences have been involved in donating to the Beyond Land Acknowledgement Fund at this point? I'm assuming that the questioner is asking besides CALM and all of our attendees.
It's mostly people. Well, put it this way. We did our communication staff, which is crack. They're absolutely fantastic. They did some quick research and found over 160 entities in the state of Minnesota that had issued or made, struggled much as you folks did with land acknowledgement statements. And we did a couple of e-blasts to them, asking them to step up to the plate and do a little bit more. So a number of them responded. We had a local community college come in, their president and their director of equity and inclusion came in to speak with us. They told us about the class, basically the curriculum they're offering that now includes some more native subjects. A local university got in touch, or local university got in touch with us, and they wanted us to know about all the people, Native American speakers they've brought in and what they're including now in their curriculum. A school system high school system in a major Minnesota town let us know that they're doing a lot more. Recently, a theater group called me in southern Minnesota. They do a lot of theater work, and they said, you know, we don't have a lot of money. What more we can do? We hired a Native American artist to make a frame for our statement. We have it in the lobby. And I said, you know, you've got a stage. You could do some education in your community. You could bring in a Native American playwright. And we have those people. It's like I said, Minneapolis has a big Native population. And I just made some suggestions. So have come in from all over the country. We've got one, it's an organic farm. And both it's the pastor that runs the organic farm and her partner, they contribute like, I believe it's like close to $270 every month. It's a recurring donation that they give. Mostly the national gifts that we've gotten so far for the fund have come in through Calm and through this process that you initiated.
So, David, I think just to pull together from some of those last questions and some threads in the chat, if someone is at an institution and would like to encourage their institution to get in touch with ILTF, how would they be in contact for that level?
I'd be glad to take that, to handle that and talk with them. I'd be very grateful to talk to them.
Great, thank you.
I think maybe one other question that I'm seeing kind of come through some various conversation channels is why do you all use the term Indian versus Native American or Indigenous?
Look, I'm a white guy. This isn't my really place to answer this. Many people, I've got colleagues who one of my colleagues who grew up on the Turtle Mountain Reservation just passed around an article dealing with this. And he said he's always proud to be called an Indian. He, just so people respect him and treat him with dignity. And different people, the voices that I've heard, people are all over the map with this. One of my colleagues, who also doesn't mind being called Indian, he said he's going to call himself an Indigican, which combines Indigenous and Indian and of course Native American. Of course, that was tongue in cheek, but we find that for the most part, people we speak with across Indian country use many of these terms interchangeably. I see it much of the literature as well. Most scholars even, they'll put a footnote in front of their article saying, I'm going to use these words interchangeably throughout my treatise or my law review article, whatever it happens to be. Again, that's a question best directed to an Indian person.
Thank you so much for today, David. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up since we are getting close to the end of the time, but thank you again. Another round of virtual applause for David and ILTF. We really appreciate everything. Your and Chris's willingness to come talk to us and just really helping us learn more about the work you do. Those maps, those visualizations for me as a data oriented person were very powerful. So I hope we can share that out with our larger community as well.
Wonderful. All right. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you, David. All right. Well, thank you all for joining our first session of Calm 2023. We just want to remind you that you can continue to be using Sched to find all of the links to all of the different sessions. The next session will be starting at 2:45 Eastern Time. Please be sure to look through any emails that you have previously received from Eventbrite. That is the primary platform that we are using to communicate to all attendees. What I might do is go ahead, and now that we have some more people that have been joining us, getting off of the wait list at the last second, is just kind of compile everything and send it out again, so you all know kind of all the different resources that we have available for you this week. So thank you again for joining us, for being here with us today, and happy Calm.